First, let me say good morning to everybody for being present. I'm grateful for your time. July 1 of 1862, President Lincoln brought the Transcontinental Railroad into life by signing the Pacific Railway Act. 94 years later, on June 29th, 1956, President Eisenhower brought the National Interstate and Defense Highway Act into law. And now 65 years later, November 15th, yesterday, 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act into law. The connectivity for me as mayor of the city in Birmingham, Alabama, is our country, through the leadership at the White House, has always found a way to connect our country. That connectivity started at some point with our rail system. It then became an interstate system. And now there's an amazing opportunity from a broadband standpoint to connect America again, to make sure all Americans have access to broadband. I think the president made a note yesterday that no mother who has a child should have to sit in a parking lot of a fast food driveway just so their child can do their homework. That's unacceptable. That's un-American. I think signing this law, signing this act into law, gives us as a country another opportunity to show who we are, to connect our country once again, for the present, but more importantly the future, just like the previous two acts did. But when you bring this package home, what does that mean for Birmingham? The infrastructure package is a game changer for Birmingham. One, I think it allows us to continue to upgrade our bridges. Believe it or not, yes, we know there's no water in the city. But we have many bridges based on that same railroad system I spoke to earlier. And many of these bridges for a city that was founded in 1871 are very old and need some form of upgrading. That upgrading doesn't work with local tax dollars alone. And so an example of this bill puts us in a very good position to upgrade some of our bridges. In addition to that, the infrastructure package is a once-in-a-lifetime generation investment to upgrade and expand our public transit options. We know here in Birmingham, our public transportation option has only been buses with the BJCTA, but there's an opportunity that we've now done our local homework to make sure our citizens who cannot afford their own vehicle and who want to use public transportation as an option can get from point A to B on time, can get to their job on time, can get to their doctor's appointment on time, can get to school on time. In addition to that, this infrastructure package creates potential unprecedented investment in our stormwater and sewer infrastructure, addressing flooding issues due to an aging system. Now, many of you all, as you know, continue to report on some of the flooding issues we've had due to the extensive amount of rain pouring into our city. I think we all know, based on the creeks that exist here, based on many other things that exist, unfortunately we've had our share of flooding issues. I think again this puts us in a position to address those issues. So again, I started with giving you a historical perspective. I brought it home to what this bill means for Birmingham. That's $6 million. $6 billion, right? Not an M. Let me correct that. It's a B. $6 billion to the state of Alabama. And there is one person to thank within our local delegation as far as our state, and that is Congresswoman Terry Sewell, who I had a chance to spend some time with at the White House yesterday. And I just want to take the time to love on her, acknowledge her, cheer for her, and celebrate her for really understanding what this infrastructure bill means, not only to the 7th Congressional District, but for all Alabamians. And last time I checked, everybody, roads are not Republican or Democrat, bridges are not Republican or Democrat, our sewer water infrastructure is not Republican or Democrat. This is something that probably should have been passed a long time ago. But I am grateful for her leadership. I'm very grateful to President Biden and Vice President Harris' leadership and all of Congress and senators for getting this done, because this is a game changer for Birmingham, for Alabama, and our country. And there are many more things in this act that I haven't even had a chance to expound on. But I wanted to share that with you and then open it up for any questions you have.
Those three things you mentioned, are those your top three priorities?
You know, which it relates to our city's infrastructure, I'll be honest with you, everything's tied for first place. I mean, we have some very crumbling infrastructure. But this bill points to those three, not only as examples, but things we need to prioritize and make happen. So, yes.
You may have to lean on Mr. Fowler for this question, I don't know, but you mentioned bridges, and there are some bridges in Birmingham that need upgrading.
Right.
And I forget, James, if it's the 21st and 22nd Street bridges, the two big bridges that go over the railroad track, they're in dire shape. How will this funding, when it does come to Birmingham, help expedite replacing those two big bridges?
Well, I will if James wants to expound on what I'm going to say. Those bridges have a significant amount of life on them. And either repair or new bridge is needed. And I think we are at a point where if it's just dependent on city tax dollars, that's cost prohibitive. And if you want to bring in the state, I think we can eventually work something out. But getting federal assistance expedites that and it speeds that process up of being in a position to get the funding in place, city, state, and federal dollars to upgrade those bridges. James, do I need to share anything else? Come on up. Pull James in.
Hi. Again, my name is James Fowler. I serve as the director of the city's Department of Transportation, and I just want to echo what the mayor said. So, really, almost everything is tied for first place. I would say, in general, probably the mantra that we want to maintain here locally is one that's been used nationally, which is fix it first. So we feel an obligation to invest in that existing infrastructure first before we look at expansions or anything new. So bridges certainly fall into that category. And Richard Arrington, 22nd Street are certainly high up there on our list. So.
What else I got? Question for me, Mayor.
Yeah.
Walk us through how you were invited to this ceremony yesterday. Obviously paid for it, but how your presence will impact the city getting its share of this funding.
So you got. Well, let's answer your question first. I received a note from the White House saying that I've been invited to attend the ceremony. Of course, I'm excited. The only person who's probably more excited is my mother. And I was honored to not only get the invite, but I was honored to attend. Being on the White House lawn with our president, our vice president, senators, as well as U.S. House Representatives, our own Congresswoman Terry Sewell, along with governors from around the nation, as well as other mayors. I think we were a part of something that's significant. You know, I brought up 1862 and 1956 on purpose. President Lincoln and President Eisenhower. I want our citizens here in Birmingham to understand the significance of this and how it has not only a national impact but a local impact too. The president mentioned the word possibilities. America's a country of possibilities. I think when it comes to investing in our infrastructure, let's be honest, it doesn't work without big moves like this. This is a big, bold move for America. And so to witness that in person, to witness that signing in person, to be invited, it's what I would call humble pie that tastes very good. I think you had another part. What's the other part of your question?
Funding for the cost of the trip, was it paid for with city money? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was invited in my official capacity. I wasn't invited as Randall Woodfin. I was invited as mayor. So, yes. But believe it or not, it's been a long time since we've traveled. I made note that in person yesterday, I have not, I guess, been in participation with or seeing other mayors in person probably since January of 2020. So we're coming up on almost 2 years since there's been some, official travel. And so it's good to, what the young people say, be outside. It's good to represent our city in its capacity. And I think that's something our taxpayers would gladly support, me being there, representing them on their behalf.
Mayor, how soon can Birmingham get the money and start work on these projects?
So that's a good question. You got And that's other point I wanted to make. So I told you earlier, the state of Alabama will have $6 billion will it be coming to the state. Separate from that, city of Birmingham and other cities across the nation will be able to go after competitive grants up to the word B of billions again that we could apply for. I believe the city of Birmingham's in a good position for both categories. I have no date for you. The law has not been in existence 24 hours yet. And there's a multitude of more information to come. And as that information come, I think it's important that I not only share it with you, but I share it with the public and what it continues to mean for us.
Obviously, we have some clear ideas about infrastructure, what we might want to address. Are there any possible concrete plans for what we might do around transit with the money?
Yeah, James, you want to come up and pontificate on?
We're bringing back the trolley cars, the streetcar.
Sure, I think that's a great question regarding transit. Certainly, we want to get our existing project built first, so that's a big step for us as a city. I think we still have to digest what's in the bill and understand how that can be allocated. I will stress that we absolutely want to try to fix any of our failing infrastructure first, but certainly we are going to have to grow differently going forward if we want to have a sustainable transportation system, and I think transit is a part of that. We're just going to have to digest where that fits in. So.
What else y'all got? I'm good, Rick. You're good. What else everybody got?
You kind of touched on this, but will flooding concerns be addressed with this money as well?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity, especially on the competitive grant side, for us to be able to go after some of our infrastructure inefficiencies around our water sewer. It's an issue. Anybody else?
Question? Everybody got everything? I think you warmed up.
Thank y'all so much.
Any thoughts on all the crime over the weekend? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, again, spending time with several mayors across the country yesterday, we had a chance to, outside of celebrating this moment of this infrastructure bill and what it means to our individual municipalities and the cities we govern, we had a chance to talk about something that we're all facing, something that we've all been facing, which is the continuation of gun violence. And in all of our cities, it's a public health crisis. Now, many of us have not declared it a public health crisis. I declared a public health crisis back in 19, and as I've shared with them and I'll share with you, I share with our citizens and our residents that gun violence was a public health crisis prior to the coronavirus. During the coronavirus, it remained a public health crisis, and as numbers continue to decline, gun violence is still a public health crisis in our city and community. But I don't want to, I guess, talk too much about public health crisis. I want to speak more to, come on in, Cap. I want to speak more to the grieving mother who called me last week that had a gap in funding to bury her son. I want to speak more to a grieving auntie who was a part of a court hearing last week for someone who killed her nephew. This is still a human life issue. It has a human toll on our community, individual families, mothers, children, grandparents, and others, friends who lost a loved one for a lot of these things that I think can be avoided. The month of November, we are 16 days into this month. We've already had 5 homicides in 16 days. But I am reminded for over a 30-day window, 2020, we had 10 homicides. But then again, not getting philosophical about it being a health crisis, not diving too deep in numbers, comparing. At a certain point, taking off my mayor hat, just being a citizen in this city, do we have enough will to talk about this and address it in a way that's holistic? I can give you many resources around conflict resolution for our youngest generation. And I plan to do that and continue to do that. I can talk about how the toll this is taking that I've just described on families. But at what point is it enough? I think we're past the point of this being enough. This is continuing to rip our community like it's ripping the community of all those mayors I spoke to yesterday. But I am hoping that we can continue to address it in the best way we can. At a certain point, if you personally know someone that's in that life, making decisions, making choices that put them in the position to either be in jail or get killed or harm someone, we have to engage our community to encourage people to make better decisions.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank y'all.
your time.